All right. Leave them live. Let's see here. Also, development is this long. The winter of 1993-94, Konami newcomers Yoshitaka Moriyama and Junko Kawano tasked with creating an RPG with an internally developed video games console. This is all from the stuff first game. Being an early version of the script is Suikoden 2. Wait. Or the console was cancelled and the RPG project shelved. Shortly thereafter, it was reopened with Konami's first PlayStation console. Yeah, this is stuff I talked about in the first one. Being keen not to rush into the story, wrote the prequel script that was used for the first Suikoden instead, in order to gain some experience. Okay, people have told me this before, but see the source for this. One of the questions readers ask me most is if they would like a particular series. A way to provide the answer and celebrate beloved franchises, RPG Spotlight gives a concise overview of the elements that gives a franchise its heart and soul. Position I take a look at Konami's Suikoden. Suikoden is best known for its political intrigue, blindsiding betrayals, recruiting an army of 108 stars of destiny to overthrow corruption and revolution. Suikoden captured role-playing fans with its intriguing political storylines alongside both traditional and tactical battles. Additionally, building your own army by recruiting stars of destiny around the world meshed well with the game's themes and put players on an addictive hunt to find them all. The stars also determined endings. The best, blah, 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 blah. Hello, Rob. How are you? Giving best outcome for tracking all 108 down. Suikoden stands up most for how well it replicates the betrayals that come in war. We've all heard stories throughout history about how dire times turn even the staunchest allies against each other. Suikoden lets players experience what a stab in the back feels like in a way few games do. That's what you find intriguing about Suikoden history catch-up. Here we go. Created by Yoshitaka Moriyama, made its way to North America in 1996 for PS1. Moriyama wanted to create an RPG to give Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy a run for their money. Moriyama's original vision became Suikoden 2 and ultimately decided to make Suikoden a prequel to that story because he didn't feel he had experience yet for his initial vision. You know, I've heard that claim, but I don't remember reading that in the actual interview with the man. So I know you guys can't see this on screen, but remember, I bought that book. Oh, by the way, I'm now 60% of the way through Well of Ascension, which has been really good. But this book over here, Untold History of Japanese Developers or whatever. This is where I got all that research for the first game. But that's not true though. Like, the game that they were making was not Suikoden 1. Why did you create a prequel to the game originally planned for Konami's new console rather than just carry on with the original? Okay, hold on. Yeah, see here. In addition to the RPG you were working on, there was a racing game and a fighting game by other teams. How far along were these? Did they evolve into other titles? When the development for the game machine was canceled, those titles were completely abandoned. Actually, at the time, I was involved in the development of an RPG and a fighting game. The fighting game, blah, blah, blah. Since the racing game, I think it was 20% in development. None of these titles went on to completion, but the name of the hero's best friend in the RPG I was working on was later reused in Suikoden. That name was Ted. So he was working on an RPG for the Konami game machine. The claim here is that that game was Suikoden 2, like the storyline for Suikoden 2. But I don't think it was. I think it was a game that was abandoned, and elements of it were carried into the first Suikoden game. Like the name of the character, Ted. Hey, what's up, Chandler and Dude McGuy? But here, he says, why did you create a prequel to the game originally planned for Konami's new console, rather than just carry on with the original? The RPG we were planning for Konami's game machine was designed for the purposes of a portable game machine and had a strong emphasis placed on the elements of raising characters. More concretely, we had planned for many classes, and the players were going to strengthen their characters through repeated class changes. But when we changed to planning for an RPG on the PlayStation, since we were designing for home console, we decided to place a greater emphasis on the game world, and so we just decided to start over. That does not seem to me that he was planning to make Suikoden 2, the story for Suikoden 2, but then was like, oh, as he's saying here, they decided to do a prequel story because he didn't feel he had the experience yet for his initial vision. I've heard literally a bunch of people claim that, and it probably came from this article. Like that, I don't want to call it a rumor necessarily, but I can't think of a better word. That rumor that he envisioned Suikoden 2 first, but then made the first game as a prequel because he didn't think he had the experience yet to do what he really wanted. I don't think that's even true. But maybe this article was what started that. This came out in 2013 though. Maybe Kimberly Wallace also believed that rumor and it started from somewhere else, but that's not what seems to be indicated in this answer. Just looking through some of the other questions. Maybe I need to put that into my Suikoden 2 discussion video. So, here's the thing about that, now that I got a few of you watching. I was originally planning to record a discussion video and then upload that to the main channel. I don't think I'm going to do that now. I think instead I'm going to host a live stream on Twitch where I can actually get live feedback from people. I can either just do that right after this stream, or I can let people know, hey, I'm planning on doing it tomorrow at this time or something like that. And I can post that as a note on the YouTube channel. So that people maybe have a little time to plan to be there or something. Not sure. But then I can also post that video to the archive channel, right? Anyways, maybe I should include this as a note. Unrelated. What's up, Hat? But super sad about the massive Game Informer layoffs last week from GameStop. Wait, does GameStop own Game Informer? Is that why they're always pushing the Game Informer magazine subscriptions at GameStop? Do they own them? Like the supposed amount of copies that Sands of Time sold, everyone has that number quoted, but it was sourced from one article. That sounds wrong. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know if this is necessarily the article that started that rumor, but it is at least perpetuating it, and I don't think it's right at all. Dude McGuy says a Twitch live stream would be good, but yes, announce it in advance so the Suikoden fans can plan to show up. Let's just do that right now. Hold on. First, let me grab. Sorry, I was doing a little writing on my book before this. Where am I at? Where am I at? I need to go to. I put it in here, right? Then called it. We get into discussion. So I could do a video on YouTube, or I could do. Here, I'll show you it in a second. Before starting on anything, address the rumor that Suikoden 2 was the original story for the Konami Game Machine RPG, but that Moriyama... That's the name, right? Wait, where'd that other one go? Game before. Yeah, Moriyama. Why is this just not on the same thing? But Moriyama wanted to do a prequel because he didn't feel he had the experience to fulfill his vision yet. What? No, get out of here. Okay, what will you be discussing in it? All this stuff from yesterday. All this stuff that we went over yesterday. This is the stuff that this is for the discussion video. The Suikoden 2 discussion video. All this stuff. Maybe you could make Suikoden 2 discussion a main podcast topic, so Kason could help you keep track of comments as you make your points. That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea, actually. I like that idea. Just turn it into the podcast topic. I'm not sure about that, though, because Kason might not want me to talk about the story spoilers. Because he might want to play the game at some point himself. I'll have to ask him about that. But I do like the idea of doing it as a podcast. I like that idea a lot, actually. Maybe what I could do is I could warn of story spoilers, and then, no, because Kason, if he's looking at the chat, people might be discussing the story spoilers in the chat. I have to ask him what he thinks about that. Live discussion allows immediate feedback. YouTube video gives people time to think over and articulate a response. But that's the thing, it will be uploaded to the archive channel. Either way it would be, but if it's a podcast, then people would just comment on the YouTube video, the podcast, right? So you'd be able to get both. I freaking love the idea of doing it as a podcast. Really does kill two birds with one stone. And before I started the stream here, I was thinking about, like, what should we do for this week's podcast? Because I was going to post something on Patreon about, like, give me your questions. Well, we hadn't really picked a topic yet. You could just cut out that segment of the podcast and upload it separately to the main channel, too. That's true. The reason I don't want to upload it to the main channel, though, this might sound petty and stupid to some of you, but in the past, I'm actually kind of like I'm not sure if I care anymore. So we brought a guy onto the team whose job it was to try and get us some sponsorships for videos. And he was having trouble doing that because a lot of the companies were saying, we don't want to even talk to a channel that gets less than 10,000 views on their videos, right? Let's see. So, they came to our channel and they went to the videos and they would see videos that had sub 10,000 views. And they would say, oh, we're not even going to talk to you if any of your videos get less than 10,000, right? So that was like sort of the reason why I unlisted a bunch of stuff, so that when people came, it's not about being deceiving so much as them seeing like you would be put into this, like a review, something that we know is going to get, tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of views. That's where we're going to place your sponsorship, is in a video like that. But they wouldn't listen unless we had all of our videos that had 10,000 plus views. So anyways, in order to make that easier, that conversation easier, that's why I unlisted a bunch of the stuff that didn't get like more than 10,000 views. The only exception, I think, was this one, which I still feel is the best video I've ever made, and I just refused to take that one down. But that being said, I feel like if I upload this as discussion video, Suikoden 2 discussion video, to the main channel, it's not gonna hit that 10,000 views. Which, at this point, I don't know if I care about anymore. Because, like, working with sponsors is freaking bullcrap anyways. I hate doing it. I don't know. I'll think about it. Leave the spoilers for the bits where his connection craps out. Yeah, that's a good idea. If you need more feedback, or you could cut out main channel. That's what you're saying. Podcast is a good idea, but I would split story spoilers into the second half so listeners are not spoiled unknowingly. Or maybe have a short, unrelated segment for those who have played the game. Could you enlist the Suikoden 2 discussion review after you get enough feedback? That's also a possibility. I could just unlist it afterwards, right? If it's not, if it doesn't get 10K plus. Well, things to consider. I do think I want to do it as a live stream, though. Let me see if I can reach out to Kason right now and ask him whether or not he would be okay discussing spoilers for that game, or being on the podcast while discussing spoilers. Ba-da-da-ba. Here he is. Hey, man. I'm thinking about doing a Suikoden 2 discussion as the main topic for this week's podcast. I would want to do a spoiler section, and since you haven't played the game, I was wondering if this is all something you'd even want to do as the topic. See what he says. Speaking of someone who sponsors you $10 a month, that hurt me on the inside. I'm like, well, not you guys. See, what I would rather have happen is, what I would really like to do is get the Patreon to a level where I could turn off ads. Of course, we would have to separate from our like the company that we network with that manages our AdSense. I don't know when the negotiations for the new contract for that come up again, but we'd have to separate ourselves from them entirely. And then I would love to, at a certain level of Patreon support, cut off the advertisements on our videos. And then never deal with sponsors and just make the videos. But we'd have to reach a pretty astronomical level of support on Patreon, like 10,000 plus a month, before that would make sense. But if I can get this whole thing worked out with going to Japan and interviewing developers and stuff, I feel like maybe we could use that as an incentive to get more people to support on Patreon, but I still don't know if we could get 10,000. I don't know. The whole money situation's tricky. It just is hard. Part of me just wants to, like, make this into a hobby again. Just, like, cut off all the money from it. But I can't make that decision. I've got 3 other people. Dude McGuy says we're not sponsors, we're supporters. By the way, Mike, you were asking about ideas for videos. You made a list of video ideas when you decided on the N64 video. Still have that list somewhere. I do. Video ideas right here. This is the one that I want to make with Pat Holloman. Still do this one. Top 10 Final Fantasy tracks. I think I've already done this before. That video was horrible. I just totally gave up on that one. These were podcast topics that I feel like I could like go and watch the podcast and sort of like remember some of the conclusions I came to, and then maybe do like a full video on those. I don't know, man. This one would get a lot of hate if I did that. I don't know. This has been so weird. Like, in like the 2 months or so before I went on the vacation, I was like trying to like, all right, I'm gonna do this. But then like in the middle of the process of trying to create that video, it would just all fall apart, and I just like hated everything I was doing. And so I was like, abandon that, and then I'd like try something else and like abandon that and try something else and abandon it. I don't know, it was like all my inspiration just freaking like disappeared. I couldn't make videos anymore. Looking at that list, I feel like it may still be true. I'm just in a rut, the creative rut at the moment. I'm just not it's not coming to me. Anyways, as we wait for him to respond, oh, he did respond. Oh, he says, I meant to tell you earlier, but I'll be in Idaho seeing Breezy's family this weekend. You want to do a live Suikoden 2 discussion for the podcast? That'd be good. It's a game I'm going to play one day. Oh, perfect. I'll do that then. On my own. Cool. Well, that settles that. Maybe I should invite some other people to talk about it with me. Anybody here big fan of Suikoden? I know that I could possibly invite Heon. I've already had a discussion with him about it though, like privately. So I kind of already know like his thoughts on it. And he mostly aligns with me on it anyways. We pretty much just agreed. I wonder if there's somebody who's like a staunch Suikoden 2 fan who would want to come on and like rebut some of the stuff I'm gonna say. Drake Chandler, that's the plan, actually. I was talking about it a little bit yesterday, but what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I'm redoing all my FF videos after I finish with this Suikoden stuff, and maybe the Xenogears video. I'm just gonna hit the FF reviews hard. Maybe I should put it to the $10 patrons as like a post. Hey guys, like I'm gonna be discussing Suikoden 2. Anybody like you know, Lady Pelvic is a big fan of Suikoden 2. I know she loved that game. She might be at least one good person to have on as like a panelist. I'm trying to think of anyone else I know who's like a big Suikoden 2 fan. Just like loves it. I could put it to Patreon though and maybe pick somebody who wants to come on and talk about it. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's go to Patreon real quick. Penske file's gone. Like that comment by Dude McGuy. I don't know if that guy's being serious. Thank you for the support. Thank you, Idris. Yep, pretty much. Can you not tell? I can't tell if he's that like being cheeky. I'm going to go ahead and do a discussion video on it first. Similarly to how I used to do pretty obviously the old projects there, right? I don't know if I'll make that into like a series. So is he really asking or is he just being cheeky? I don't really know. Time to get out the YouTube celebrity little black book. Yeah. I remember a suggestion I made. Ooh, Game Dave. Game Dave loves Suikoden. Maybe I can invite Game Dave on. You guys know Game Dave? I love Game Dave. That's not what Game Dave. This channel right here. This dude's awesome. He's funny. He's a big Suikoden fan, though. Huge Suikoden fan. I'm not sure how I could reach out to him about. You have like Twitter. Doesn't appear to have a Twitter, but he has Facebook and an Instagram and a Twitch. Lives in Delaware. Anyways, this is an option. That's an option. Pro Jared. I don't know how to respond to this because I don't know if he's being serious or not. I could say it's Cloud and like take the comment seriously and be like, I know. Or I could be like, well, it's Claude Strofe or something. I don't know how to respond. Jack Pate, he's a funny guy. I'll just like his comment. I'll just like the comment and leave it at that. Okay, so what I was going to do is go to posts, new, and let's do this first. Images, upload images, podcast questions, image, and say Suikoden to discussion. Maybe I'll put podcast number, what are we on, 35? Can't remember what we're on now. See ya, hat. Resident Archive. Go to my own videos. Yeah, we're on number 35. Wow, we've done 35 podcasts already. Okay. So we get into discussion. Hello, patrons. This week, I'll be doing a discussion on Suikoden 2 for the podcast. I didn't love this game as much as many other people do, so I'm looking for as much perspective as possible before making a retrospective on it. Please feel free to share your thoughts here, join the live chat, and make suggestions for topics. Thank you, as always, for your support. Did you see something about Ipecac, Dr. Rob? I didn't see that. Did that like come up in the search or something? I'm confused. I was watching what was I watching? There was something that came into my feed. I can't remember why. It was like a related video to something I was watching where they paid this guy, I don't know, a couple $100 or something if he would drink the Ipecac. So like he did it, he was puking, and then I remembered it from Family Guy. It was like a running gag on Family Guy for a while back in the early seasons where they would drink Ipecac and they're puking everywhere. Anyways, I think I had done a search on it to like know like what the actual like chemical compound is, like what is it and what is it used for medically. I was curious about it. So that's why it's there. Now, And we'll do, this is for these tiers. Publish. Oh, let me edit it as well. Say, Kaysen will not be joining me for this one. So if there are any of you who are staunch Suikoden 2 fans, reach out to me and maybe I'll get you to join me on the live call. All right, it's a good start. Let me also make a Twitter announcement. Get like a Suikoden 2 like photo of some kind to go with it. One's not bad. A little fuzzy. Maybe this one's better. Maybe I can do a screenshot from the game itself. That is horrible crop. Why would anyone do that? Look, the eyes are like way above the freaking like upper third. That's ridiculous. Maybe that one. Maybe just the cover art from the game. I'm gonna just do that on the desktop. Please. Suikoden 2. Okay, Twitter. With my face put onto the main character. That would be funny. I could do that. Bop, 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 bop. How can I say this concisely? After finishing my playthrough of Suikoden 2, I unfortunately didn't love it like many others did. For that reason, this week's podcast will be a dedicated discussion on Suikoden 2, so I can hear as many perspectives on the game as possible. Make sure to join me at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. Oh, it's geez, way too many. All right, how do I cut this down? How about we just go with this week's podcast will be a dedicated discussion on Suikoden 2, so I can hear as many perspectives on possible. Before making the retrospective. Mountain Time this Sunday on Twitch. We did it. Let's get the Twitch channel so people can click it.
And I guess.
Sunday is what date? 1st? Ooh. 1st of September. Podcast will be a dedicated discussion on Suikoden 2, so I can hear as many perspectives on the game as possible before making the retrospective. Make sure to join me at 1 p.m. Mountain Time this Sunday, September 1st on Twitch. Tweet that. Whoa, holy fetch. Why did it like... Why did it do that? Why did it center the... It's not even centered, it's just the bottom of it. It should be centering it on the... That's retarded. Anyways, that's dumb. Now, let's announce it on YouTube like this. Now, I can't remember if this fetches the stream or not. If it does, I'll be back soon. But I think if I switch accounts to this, and I'm currently logged into this channel, that the stream should not be broken. Now, if we go to our channel while I'm logged in, and I go to community, and I do an image, and I do this. Host a discussion. Aim to hear as many perspectives as possible. I'll be doing that this Sunday, September 1st on Twitch at 1 p.m. Mountain Time on Twitch. If you'd like to join the discussion and share your thoughts on the game with me, I should probably mention it's a podcast. On our podcast this Sunday, September 1st at 1 p.m. Mountain Time on Twitch. Join the discussion and share your thoughts with me. Be sure to join in. And there is the Twitch. Why is he holding a traffic cone in that one picture? Has he just come off of a drunken bender? It does look weird. It's supposed to be like these kind of like flat wooden things he smacks people with. I don't know what that weapon is called, but it does look weird from that angle. It does look like a traffic cone. After finishing my first, or not my first, after finishing my playthrough of Suikoden 2, I have to say that unfortunately I don't love it. We'll do it this way. Break it up a little bit. Don't love it the same way a lot of other people do. For that reason, before making my retrospective, I want to host a discussion on the game to hear as many perspectives as possible. doing that on our podcast this Sunday, September 1st at 1 p.m. Mountain Time on Twitch. If you'd like to join the discussion and share your thoughts on the game with me, be sure to join in. Post. Okay. Takes care of that. Suppose I could do a Facebook post as well. Even though no one follows us on Facebook at all. I'll just copy the freaking... What the fetch? Stop. I'll just copy. Exactly. Let's get into here. Boink, boink, boink. Share now. Having an event? No, get the fetch out of here. All right, that's good enough for now, I think. So that's the plan. I could reach out to Game Dave. And Pelvic Gaming. Where is she at in terms of her growth on the channel? 17,000. Not bad.
Hi guys, my name is Lady Pelvic.
She's a big fan of the game though. So I could have her on to talk about it. Let's wait maybe until we see if people from Patreon end up like wanting to come on, because I want to I don't want to have too many people on the panel. I think that with the what do you call it, the E3 video that I did, I had too many people on that panel. There's just too many people and it took way too long. So I think at like maximum I would want myself and 2 others. So we'll see who responds on Patreon, and then I'll make a decision on which other people I should maybe invite on there. Anyways, that was a gigantic distraction from what I was supposed to be doing here, which is looking up background information on Suikoden 2. Top researcher notes, Suikoden retrospective. We're going to do a Google Doc for Suikoden 2 notes. Too many cooks in the kitchen. That's exactly what ended up happening. Whether they were canceled, what were the other 2 RPGs? One of them was canceled while I was still in the planning stage, so I don't remember the details. The other, I think, was an action RPG. I really don't remember much about. Okay, here we go. Before they were canceled, what were the other 2 RPGs being developed alongside Suikoden? Wait a minute. Were you a fan of Shui Huzwan novel? The game story seems like a departure from the written material. From an early stage, I was a fan of old fables like Suikoden and Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I was strongly influenced by them to do a multi-character story. However, I decided that a pure Chinese-style worldview was not a good choice for a Japanese RPG with a major fantasy focus, so it became a half-fantasy, half-Chinese-style worldview. This is all in my Suikoden 1 video. For Suikoden 1, I designed some story episodes based to some degree on Suikoden, the novel, but since Suikoden 2 is based on the story of Ko and Ryo, got rather far away from Suikoden. Before they were canceled, what were the other 2 RPGs being developed alongside Suikoden? One of them was canceled while it was still in the planning stage. I don't remember the details. The other, I think, was an action RPG. Really don't remember much about that either. Other RPGs allow players to run away from battle. The Suikoden series introduced the option of bribing enemies, and if at a high level, letting enemies go free. Don't care about that. Suikoden game features a lot of content which is easily permanently missable. For example, the quest for the character Clive and Gremio's recipe. How did the team feel about this? Were you concerned the players would never see elements of your work? Don't care about that right now. Did any material have to be left out of the first 2 Suikoden titles due to time? Please describe anything which did not make it. I don't remember very well since there were so many changes that happened during the development process. Just before the deadline for Suikoden 1, there was one episode featuring a village that went over in terms of data memory. Oh, I remember this one. They put an NPC in the door so that you couldn't go upstairs, and a lot of people thought there was a secret up there. First 2 Suikoden titles deal with adult topics. Was there any resistance from management? He says no. It was all left up to him. My favorite parts in Suikoden 2 was the cooking minigame and collecting recipes. How did that come about? Popular manga that showed off the beauty of food in the competition format. I did like that minigame, the cooking minigame. See ya, Chocolate Rob? The cooking minigame was a lot of fun in this game. I did like that. I should probably put that into my list of things I like about the game. Go back once and open up. You have 2 opening it? Nope. Where are we at? This one. Liked the cooking minigame. I think we're strongly influenced, or at the time there was a popular manga that showed off the beauty of food in competition format. I think we were strongly influenced by that in making this minigame. First, it was a little simpler, but at some point the designer increased the number of food graphics. We began to add a lot to match them. First 2 Suikoden games are loved outside of Japan. Do you have a message for fans? I don't think there's going to be a lot of background information on Suikoden 2. Cooking mini game was inspired by a popular manga that showed off the beauty of food in competition format. Pull this out a little bit. Whoa. I'll do it this way. Okay. Even now I receive mail from inside Japan as well as from overseas, and I am extremely grateful to those fans out there that love Suikoden. Characters in Suikoden are not just large in number, but each one of them was born as an individual with their own unique characteristics and backgrounds. If people can find among them a character that they can emphasize or empathize with, I'm very happy. Now we're talking about Suikoden 3. Why did you leave Konami? Was it during or after Suikoden 3? The time we started development on Suikoden 3 was my plan to quit. It was completed. Much of it has to do with the tough conditions for an employee doing game development within a large Japanese corporation. He left after Suikoden 3. I was extremely attracted to the idea of doing freelance development work. I told Konami about my intentions from an early stage, and to a certain extent, my resignation period was decided. That schedule set already, and due to the complications, this Suikoden 3 development schedule going this way and that way, the result was that I left the company when the game was in the final stages of development. Suikoden was not created by myself alone, but by an entire R&D team involved from Suikoden 1 to 3. There are many people involved who also moved away from the project midway in development. I'm nothing more than one of them. Doesn't change the fact that Suikoden is extremely precious to me, and even though I moved away from it, I never threw it away. Do you perhaps have an anecdote? Yeah, that's it. They don't really say much about the development of Suikoden 2 in this interview. It's mostly the first game. And I put a lot of it into the first video. Might be tougher than I thought. Morion interview from 2016. Look at this. The fetch? Come on. Oh, the revival movement. I think I read this one too when I was doing Suikoden 1. We use the Chinese classic water margin. For Suikoden 2, we use the story of Chuhan Contention, famous war in Chinese history and literature, as a motif. The world was largely inspired by Michael Moorcock's Eternal Champion series. How did you write the plot line for the Suikoden games? Who or what did you come up with first? Heroes, villains, or perhaps a conflict itself. I'm fairly certain we started thinking about the characters who would surround the protagonist, and of course, since the water margin tale was the motif for the game's story, we used that as the basis for the conflict of the game. Why'd you use the conflict of a silent hero instead of a talking one? See, he doesn't even say here that Suikoden 2 came first. Conceptually. Anyways. I need to switch back to this channel. There we go. Did you think Suikoden would be as successful as it was before the release of the first game? We were too busy making Suikoden 1 at the time to even think about sequels. There you go! Wait, where does he say that? Here it is. Did you think Suikoden would be as successful as it was before the release of the first game? We were too busy making Suikoden 1 at the time to even think about sequels. The first two Suikoden games were released on the PlayStation. What were some of the challenges you had to face when you switched the platform to Suikoden 3? From a technological standpoint, making the 3D event scenes was especially tough. Alright, I'm going to put that in my notes. Actually. Question. Oops. Answer. We can put here. Address the false rumor that Suikoden 2 was conceived first but put on hold while Moriyama made a prequel story to gain experience. sweet. His favorite moment is Luca Blight's death. From a technological standpoint, making the 3D event scenes was especially tough as we were just starting to figure out how it all works. The first two Suikoden games were released on the PlayStation. The first PlayStation. What were some of the challenges you had to face when you switched the platform with Suikoden 3? From a technological standpoint, making the 3D event scenes was especially tough as we were just starting to figure out. Which moment scene of which game do you like the most? Luca Blight's death. I think that one thing I want to make clear is that there are really good moments in Suikoden 2. Luca Blight's death is perhaps the highlight of the whole game, and Moriyama agrees that it's his favorite moment in the whole series. Oops. Okay. Gameplay Suikoden 2 feels more refined version of the first game. Why did you feel the need to change and add some elements to it with Suikoden 3? Oh, this is a Suikoden 3 question. Imagine if you had today's technology you first worked on Suikoden. Be the same game? Two problems we would have. First, RPGs have to be advanced from a technological standpoint. Also, it would take an awful lot of work to make a game like that. Creating countries like Harmonia or Scarlet Moon, did you take inspiration from the real world? They are not based on existing countries. How would you like the idea of science fiction Suikoden with a spaceship as headquarters and space battles? Wonder how that turned out. Truth is, I had a plot idea for Suikoden that revolved around a robot. Normally, RPGs use a magic point pool for spells, but Suikoden uses a different system, which is similar to the first Final Fantasy. Why did you decide on that? Basing this off the magic system from the Wizardry series, hoping to make it so the user would know which spells are strong and which spells are weak, and when to use each one. There a special reason why you included the bucket and moon status? Around the time Suikoden 1 came out, tons of RPGs on the market, so we wanted to find some ways, even if they were only small ones, to differentiate our game from others. That's why we came up with those status effects. The motif behind the true runes? Many speculate whether they are based on tarot cards. There's not a lot of good development history in this interview. I will save it for later. Is there a shining star? Okay, this is no longer. We'll save it for later. But let's see if there's a Suikoden 2 retrospective out there. Suikoden 2 retrospective and review by Igor Gaming. Is this the guy who did the first game? Can't remember. See what he has to say about it. Okay, so he's saying you can buy this weekend games at these links.
In 1996, Konami released the first Suikoden game to North America. It was met with great acclaim to fans of console RPGs and began a new franchise. Konami then followed suit with a sequel, Suikoden 2, in 1999. Like the first game, Suikoden 2 was the masterwork of Yoshitaka Moriyama, who had already concocted many of the game's premises prior to the original Suikoden's development. This was because the original script of Suikoden 2 was first written for a Konami internal console that was eventually canned when the company decided to
False!
publish games for the Sony PlayStation. Moriyama decided...
At least I think it's false. Maybe that'll be a good thing, again, to bring up in the discussion video. Because if anyone has a source for that other than that freaking Game Informer article, I would love to see it.
Decided that the original script would be too difficult to pull off without first creating a less complex story first. So a few years later, he dusted off the original script for Suikoden 2. The events of Suikoden 2 pick up 3 years after the events of the original game. The main protagonist, Ryu, and his friend Joey are members of the Highland
Is that the end of the development?
Army's Youth Brigade camp. Rumors seem to indicate that a bloody conflict between the Highland Kingdom and the city-states of Joustin is about to come to an end. As a result, the soldiers in the camp are in a jubilant mood as they believe that they will soon return home. Ryu and Joey suddenly wake up in the middle of the night to the sounds of battle and cries of anguish, discovering that their camp has been set on fire.
Yeah, it's just...
They escape into the mountains but decide to report to Raud, their commander. When they go back and do so, they see Raud meeting with Prince Luca Blight, where they come to a horrific realization. The assault on the camp was a false flag attack set by Luca Blight, who intends to subdue Joustin under his rule by continuing the war. Joey confronts Raud but is stopped by Ryu, and the two are able to escape to the cliffs behind camp. Before jumping into the rapids below, they make a promise to each other to return to a rock there to unite once the conflict is over. Ryu is discovered by Victor and Flick, who are immediately recognizable from the first game, and this is where the story truly begins. As far as combat goes, there isn't very much change from the original Suikoden. Parties consist of 6 characters, and each character has a short-ranged, medium-ranged, or long-ranged weapon. This determines whether or not the character can attack from the back row. As in the original game, magic in Suikoden 2 revolves around runes, and characters can use their runes to inflict damage in combat. Thankfully, there is now a 3-slot system that allows characters to equip up to 3 runes at once. This was a welcome change that added a bit of diversity and customization that the original Suikoden lacked. Also, the Unite system is back again, and predefined groups of characters can engage in special Unite attacks if the required characters are all present in the same party. Unite attacks incentivize adding certain characters to your party to maximize your damage potential, and it really is a fun aspect of the Suikoden series that most other RPGs just don't offer. For the game's strategic battles, Suikoden 2 made some improvements upon the original game.
See what he says about
While the basics of the strategic battle commands have remained similar, hero and enemy forces are now divided into units on a map, making movement a key part of the clashes. Like the first game, there are 3 types of units: infantry, archers, and mages. However, unlike the first game, army battles in Suikoden 2 are based on unit attributes, so attack, defense, and runes control the outcomes. Thankfully, there is also added support skills such as healing to augment the strategy. All in all, Suikoden 2 offered some nice touches that made its strategic battles plainly better than the original Suikoden. The one-on-one duel battles are back in...
I will admit that perhaps I didn't try to experiment enough with the battles to like really understand their potential. So maybe somebody who's really delved into that can like explain it to me a little better. Because that guy was using some pretty interesting moves, like big fire moves and stuff like that, that I never freaking even tried. But maybe it's because I hadn't recruited the right characters, or like customized which units they belonged to, or whatever. I don't know. I just didn't like it.
In this one as well, and they aren't very different from the original Suikoden. Your 3 command options, attack, defend, and wild attack, basically comes down to a paper, rock, scissors game. However, what does make these duels fun is that the enemy typically makes a statement prior to his next move, which usually determines what he's about to do. Though pretty simple, the duels do help advance the story pretty well.
Even in it's not even dialogue, it's just like the descriptions. Wild attack hits with 5 exclamation marks.
That's what he's about to do.
Received attack!
Though pretty simple, the duels do help advance
Wild attack hits!
the story pretty well. Of all the characteristics of Suikoden 2, I think the game's story is the very best part. It's clearly darker and more serious than the first Suikoden, which seemed quite a bit more optimistic. For embracing this type of story, I think Suikoden 2 definitely surpassed my expectations. Ryu and Joey's parallel lives make the biggest impact to the player, and how these characters are used is one of the most exceptional facets of the game. It's very rare to find an RPG where the 2 main characters are utilized so efficiently, while being located in different parts of the world and with entirely different outlooks for most of the game. Also, the game just offers a ton of nostalgia for those who had played the first Suikoden. This was a nice touch for fans, and really a distinctive choice that is rarely done in other RPG series. Like the original Suikoden, the game borrows key ideas from the classic Chinese novel Shuihu Juan, often translated as Water Margin. The novel is a seminal work in China, where it is considered one of the 4 great classics of Chinese literature. Among the influences lifted from Water Margin are the inclusion of exactly 108 characters. These characters are known in the game as the 108 Stars of Destiny. Being able to recruit this many characters offered a fun challenge and some replay value to the game that would not have existed otherwise. And speaking of the 108 characters in Suikoden 2, one of them is Tyr McDowell, the hero of the first game. Being able to recruit him was definitely an unexpected touch, and it brought back a lot of great memories. In order to unlock Tyr, one must first load save data with all 108 Stars of Destiny from the original Suikoden at the beginning of the game. Loading save data at the beginning of Suikoden 2 to unlock special content was a really sweet idea that I've never really seen replicated before in other RPGs. At this point, I'd also like to praise the way in which Suikoden 2 handles the game's adversaries. I just loved how much attention is given to them. There are numerous scenes where you see these characters discuss key storyline details and personal thoughts, and it provides a great way to develop the characters and make them more interesting. This was a refreshing facet of the game that the first Suikoden didn't offer. There are many storyline ties to the first Suikoden game as well, and the game has lots of great nostalgia that will make fans of that one very happy. For instance, the villain Uber plays a bigger role in Suikoden 2, and he has become one of the most popular characters in the series. Mysterious and cunning, he carries a sincere hatred toward the 27 true runes, and is wholly committed to bringing down anyone wielding them. Of course, we also have to touch upon the music in Suikoden 2. The music soundtrack for this game was a monumental effort, coming in at 105 tracks in total. Like the original game, Miki Higashino was the primary composer. As one of the high points in the series, the music helps deliver the moods of the game rather effectively. The music was also arranged well, and the songs definitely fit the game's storyline sequences. Some of my favorite tracks in Suikoden 2 include Name Entry, The Even More Glorious Beautiful City, and Gothic Necklore. In all honesty, while I think the story in Suikoden 2 is superior to that of the original Suikoden, I think the music in Suikoden 2 is a notch below the level of the first title, even though the volume of songs is much greater in the second entry. Thankfully, Suikoden 2 did make use of significant ease of improvements over the original title. For instance, inventory management is no longer a complete nightmare. In the first Suikoden,
that is something I wanted to mention. This is mostly like development history stuff. Okay.
Each character only had 9 item slots, which made transferring and storing items incredibly tedious. In Suikoden 2, however, the developers wisely created a party-wide joint inventory that made transferring items less of a chore. Additionally, holding down the dash button now allows you to run, which is a big help for travel. Getting around the world faster is always something that should be offered in RPGs, and this was a big help. Unfortunately, Suikoden 2 was quite a bit rarer than the original title, which has made its cost explode for a used copy. Thankfully, the game was finally re-released on the PlayStation Store a few years ago for a much lower price. Suikoden 2 offers a lot of great features that will please fans of classic RPGs, and especially fans of the original game. In the context of today's gaming age, a lot of people would be turned off by the random battles and 2D sprites, but those two facets are what made Suikoden fans flock to this game in droves. Even though Suikoden 2 sold about half of the number of copies as the original game, it does receive critical acclaim, and it is almost universally considered to be a better game than the original. If you're a fan of the more modern, action-oriented RPGs that do away with turn-based battles and random encounters, you probably won't like this one. However, those who do love classic RPGs will not be able to pass this one up. It's truly one of the console's greatest games for its genre. Overall, I have a hard time disagreeing with those that revere this game, and I consider it to be one of the top 5 games on the Sony PlayStation. And that will do it for my retrospective and review on Suikoden 2.
Alright, who else did one? Part 2. Freaking love Final Fantasy Tactics music! Oh, Suikoden 2 review, Suikoden retrospective part 2. From the Gaming Pilgrim.
We live in an era where sequels or new installments to existing franchises are the norm, and comprise of most of the new releases these days. Consider the Final Fantasy and Tales series. Both have seen around 15 main entries, and don't even get me started on spin-offs. Unfortunately, not every new installment improves upon its predecessor. A good sequel should improve upon the groundwork established by the previous game, take what worked and make it better while rectifying or removing what didn't. Suikoden 2 is an example of a near-perfect sequel, the kind that I'd best describe as exactly like the original game, but better in every conceivable way.
From a gameplay perspective, I pretty much agree with that, actually. That's something I hadn't really been thinking about. Like, mostly my problems with this game are with the storytelling, but when it comes to the actual game, it's like it is just like that perfect refinement of the first game. The inventory system's way better now. You can use 3 runes per character. Like combat generally is just a little bit of a notch above. It's like it's mostly the same ideas, but they just like sort of tweaked it and fixed it exactly the right ways. So that
The original Suikoden 2 was a PlayStation 1 game that saw a very limited release in North America on September 29th, 1999. With very few printed copies available and its late release in the PlayStation 1's life, the game quickly became a highly sought-after collector's item. Regrettably, today, the game is mostly known for the infamous high prices that it demands on eBay, rather than the quality of the game itself, which is a shame as Suikoden 2 may very well be one of the best RPGs on a system renowned for having some of the best RPGs of all time. In fact, Suikoden 2 is most likely the best RPG you haven't played. Suikoden 2 is a direct sequel to the first Suikoden, taking place years after. The story focuses on the conflict between the Kingdom of Highland and the city-states of Joustin. The game begins with a new silent protagonist and his best friend Jowie, who I really want to call Joey, witnessing the total annihilation of their unit
Joey.
as a part of a plot to fuel the war. The pair manage to escape, but only to be captured later by the Highland army. Just when they're about to be executed, some familiar faces from the original Suikoden rescue our heroes and begin to form a resistance against the forces of Highland. Like usual, I won't be going past a basic summary of the game's premise, as the optimal way to experience the story is to experience it firsthand yourself by playing the game. But to get the most out of the story, I recommend playing the original prior, as there are many references and reoccurring characters present here. You can understand the story just fine regardless, but for the optimal narrative experience, play Suikoden 1 first. However, I need to discuss why the story works so well. Suikoden had an okay, if a bit standard story of political intrigue with some fantasy elements. Suikoden 2 has a much more in-depth narrative with a very interesting, politically driven story that uses some fantasy elements such as the True Runes to further the story. The way some events transpire seem like something you'd witness during an episode of Game of Thrones more than something you would see during a JRPG from the 90s. But the real reason why the story is so damn interesting and engaging is because Suikoden 2 has something that many RPGs lack. A great villain. Luca Blight, the Prince of Highland, is quite possibly the best villain to ever star in a game or any form of media. He is insane, brutal, impossibly strong, and makes for a compelling character.
That's a bit of a... I feel like that's a huge stretch. Calling him even just the best villain in video games is a stretch, much less best villain of anything of all time. Especially the way he's written, like the dialogue comes across as being pretty cheesy due to this dialogue. I think he's a great villain, but I mean, come on.
Character you love to hate but can't help but respect. Throughout the game, you'll witness Luca Blight destroy towns, butcher innocent people, and completely fuck shit up. The best part about him is he doesn't have any magic powers or special abilities. He's just a man with an insatiable bloodlust and the strength to feed it. I could drone on and on about why he's such a great villain, but I couldn't do it justice. But I will say this, that the fight with Luca Blight is one of the best designed boss encounters in any RPG I've ever played. Aside from Luca Blight, the rest of the story is well-paced, interesting, and is incredibly effective in telling itself. The game does an excellent job of showing over telling. You know Luca is evil because you witness him doing some horrific things. You know the main character and Jowie are good friends because you see flashbacks displaying their friendship. The game's story is full of great moments that need to be experienced in person. Once again, the end goal will have you searching for the 108 stars of destiny, with many of them being characters from the previous game. In fact, you can even import your save data from Suikoden to influence some of their stats, and if you import a save with the best ending, you can even recruit the main character from the original, which is an awesome bonus feature. Like the last game, not all the characters get a whole lot of development, being that there are so many of them, but since there are many reoccurring characters, many come with some development already and leaves more time to develop many of the new ones. Overall, Suikoden 2 does a much better job at balancing the development of each character, but like the original, favors those more crucial to the overall story. Again, like the original, recruiting these characters is of major importance and you'll be traveling to various locations to find and enlist them. One thing that I feel is definitely improved from the last game is how you actually go about recruiting them. In Suikoden 1, many characters can only be recruited at certain points.
So these retrospectives aren't, they're not covering a lot of development history. I don't think there's a lot of information on the development history of this game. It does not seem like
a narrative, or once you recruit enough other characters. And while some of these types of recruitment are still within Suikoden 2, many characters have you now do a very brief side quest or mini adventure for you to complete before enlisting them in your army. These types of quests are both interesting and greatly help develop these individual characters, as well as help provide some variety to your objectives. At a glance, the gameplay of this sequel may look near identical to its predecessor, and to some extent that may actually.
Did I make a note for... Hold on. There was one thing I really want to make a note for. It was this part where he says... Here we go. Okay, so... While Suikoden 1 used... Suikoden as inspiration for the story. Suikoden 2 used the Chuhan contention. Famous war in Chinese history and literature. He also mentioned something like Ko and Rio or something like that. So I need to look into those, like what those stories are. Chu-Han contention. Chu-Han contention was an interregnum? What the fetch does that word mean? Period of discontinuity or a gap in a government, organization, or social order. What the fetch? That's not what I'm trying to do at all. I'm trying to take this word, put it into a search. I know how to pronounce it.
Interregnum.
Interregnum.
Interregnum. Interregna. Interregnum.
Huh. The time during which a throne is vacant between two successive reigns or regimes. Period during which the normal functions of government or control are suspended. A lapse or pause in a continuous series. Huh.
Interregnum.
Learning something every day. Was an interregnum between the Qin dynasty and the Han dynasty in Chinese history. Following the collapse of the Qin dynasty in 206 BC, Zhang Yu split the former Qin Empire into 18 kingdoms. Two major contending powers emerged, Western Chu and Han, which engaged in a struggle for supremacy over China. Western Chu was led by Zhang Yu, while the Han leader was Liu Bang. Several minor kings also warred, but these were largely independent. Independent of the main conflict between Western Chu and Han, the war ended in 202 BC. Total victory for Han, and Liu Bang soon proclaiming himself first emperor of the Han dynasty. This is crazy. In 221 BC, the Qin state unified China by conquering the other 6 major states and established the Qin dynasty. However, the oppressive and extremely unpopular dynasty lasted only 14 years. 209 BC, Chen Shang and Wu Guang started the, I can't pronounce any of these names, Dajiang uprising to overthrow the Qin dynasty. Although the uprising was crushed, several others erupted consecutively over the next 3 years. Numerous pretenders to the former 6 states emerged, and most powerful being Chu Kingdom. The Chu general, Zhang Yu, won the support of many rebels. After his victory at the Battle of Julu, becoming the de facto leader of the insurgents and proclaiming himself hegemon king of Western Chu. He ruled 9 mandaries in the former Liang and Chu territories, and his capital at Penchang. Divided the former Qin Empire into vassals, 18 kingdoms, and gave the puppet ruler King Huai II of Chu a more honorable title, Emperor Yi of Chu. A year later, Zhang Yu effectively sent the figurehead into exile to Chen County. Okay. During the division of the 18 kingdoms, Zhang Yu appointed some former rebel generals as vassal kings, even though they were subordinates of other lords. Sent to the remote Bashu region. I wonder if any of these people inspired the characters in the story. Like, I wonder if Luca Blight was inspired by any of these people or something. Yeah. Here, I pronounce this again. Interregnum. Crazy. No, it doesn't. Plays like Fire Emblem. Why? No sound from the YouTube video? You guys aren't hearing it at all? Huh? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. I see it working in yeah, I can see it working in OBS, so I don't know why that's happening. All right. Most of these are not rumination analysis. We have a lore runner. Let's watch on YouTube. Lore runner. Talking about Suikoden 2, so he's played it. So he's potentially someone I could bring on to discuss it. Of course, I could always just watch his video, get his perspective. So he thinks that it's poor characterization. Matrix. I wonder if that's because, you know, the 108, there's just too many characters kind of thing. I should probably watch this tonight. Okay, well, I'm gonna watch that later, for sure. There doesn't seem to be a lot on it. This is just a story thing. These seem to be the only two retrospectives, and they don't really cover any, Oh, he has 2 parts? Oh, this is old. It is so interesting seeing him with, like, super long hair. Okay, well, I'm gonna watch his stuff on it. But there doesn't seem to be, like, a real in-depth retrospective on this game. Here's a retrospective and review. Oh, it's this guy. The Fetch? That's his first Suikoden. That's the first Suikoden. The History of Suikoden. I think I watched this one. Yeah, I think I commented on this guy's video. I did. I asked him, yeah. So I've seen this guy's video. This was for the first game. Well, there doesn't seem to be a lot of information out there on the development of Suikoden 2. I suppose what I'll do is watch some more videos on my own as I eat tonight. Maybe see if I can find any more interesting tidbits of information. And then do the podcast on Sunday and get some other perspectives on the game, and then kind of decide on Monday, you know, how should we move forward. Because I think this will also possibly be an issue unless I can't do interviews on my own with the developers of the Final Fantasy series and ask my own questions for the development sections. I think like Final Fantasy 2, for instance, there's like not a lot of info on the game's like development history. There's just not a lot there. So you can't really spend a lot of time talking about how the game was designed because they just don't have a lot of interviews or anything where people are discussing that stuff. So anyways, stuff to mull over. But like I'm not going to be able to do this in-depth sort of like discussion on the game's history like I did in this one. Like all this kind of thing. I covered most of it already in the first, or in this video. Anyways, I think I'm going to stop streaming now for today. But it seems to me like there's not a lot of info to create like a really in-depth sort of development history section, which could be okay. Like it'll make the video shorter for sure. I'll have to fill it more with my own kind of analysis on it, but I won't be able to really like, well, I could, but I'm not going to start like really putting that together until I've done the discussion video. So in any case, Sounds like a good plan to me, says Dude McGuy. Gotta go. See you later. See you later, Dude McGuy. Be back again tomorrow for another stream. Maybe I'll start working on the Xenogears video tomorrow. Put this one on hold for a couple days until I do the podcast. But everyone have a good one. I will see you tomorrow. Peace out.